I've been coaching a lot of barebow shooters lately, and they've all had very similar questions in regards to how to move their group from off of the center of the target into the center of the target and how they do that. Do they do that with changing string alignment, aiming off, or something else? And in this video, I'm going to show you my solution to that problem, something that I've learned and picked up over the years talking to some of the world's best barebow shooters that are out there. And in this video, I'm going to show you how to adjust your groups if they're off center, left or right, and how to get them dead in the center. So that way you can have some more fun out there with your barebow. Like I said, I've had a lot of people come to me lately to get some coaching in form regards to barebow as well as some equipment setup. And they've all had very similar questions regarding grouping and how to affect the impact points of the grouping left or right. So in this video, I'm going to show you how do I do that and how I would recommend you to do that as well as far as a starting point is concerned. I'm going to go outside and grab my target butt and my arrows, get warmed up and start shooting some arrows. I'll get a group going. And it won't be in the middle, and then I'll show you how to make the adjustments to make it land in the middle. There's a lot of questions out there. People are just getting into barebow, a lot of new shooters out there, and people just don't know how to make these adjustments because it's kind of relatively unknown, I guess. Not necessarily unknown because there are people out there that do share their knowledge, but it's just not as common. Like on Olympic style recurve, well, how do you move your sight? You just adjust it to make it go in the middle. You know what to do there. I'm here at 20 yards and I'm just shooting at a really basic target here. I've got a camera downrange so you'll be able to see the impact points. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna shoot a group first. We're gonna look at the group and see what's going on the target, and then we're gonna talk about how to adjust them. Forgive me, my form and whatnot. I haven't done this in a very long time. I haven't shot at all since the last video I did basically. I shot compound a couple of times here or there, but I haven't been shooting. I haven't had time. I'm starting to have some time, so that's a good thing. Anyway, I'm gonna shoot a group. I'm gonna shoot, I'll just shoot 6 arrows. That's what I've got in the quiver. So I'm gonna shoot 6 arrows. I'm not gonna do anything different. I'm gonna do the same thing every single time and try to shoot a good group. I use the grip sear method. My nails are a little bit too long, that's why I took out that nail file, and that last shot just went a little too long for my preference. I was struggling with the sear, as you could probably see. Long story, it is what it is. Let's keep going. All right, there's 6 arrows. I'm gonna take you down there, take the camera with me, and we're gonna go check out the group and discuss what's going on. And then we'll come back here and I'm gonna show you what I'm going to adjust to make all those arrows hit dead in the center. All right, so you can see I'm hitting to the left of the center of the target. I had one arrow, that was that long one, the really long one, and that was a mistake. So, ignore mistakes. This one was a mistake as well, went to the other way. But you can see the central group is, maybe 3 inches, give or take, off to the left, off center. The height's fine, so that means I have my crawl correct, my string walking crawl correct. What I need to adjust here is my left to right impact. Because I mentioned crawl, I will have links in the description below to a video on how to string walk and how to crawl down the string properly. So that way you can essentially use your arrow as the sight. If you haven't checked that video out yet, or you don't know yet more of what I'm doing here in string walking my barebow that fits within the World Archery rules, then I will have, like I said, links in the description below for that. And now I'll take you back on the shooting line and I'll explain to you a few different methods on how to adjust this stuff. I've already referenced string walking and the vertical impact point. That's how you would adjust your groups up or down, with changing your crawl down your string quickly. That is how far down from the arrow you pull the bow back when shooting in this style of archery. There's also your anchor to be concerned with as far as vertical stuff is concerned. But left to right is a whole different ball game. I have a video that I've already produced. It was a while ago, so forgive me if it was a bit clunky. I'm a lot better at producing content now, but I'm gonna reference it anyway. Links in the description, plus a card at the top up there on how to use string alignment for barebow, what you're looking for. It's not just for barebow, it's also for Olympic style recurve. It covers both, so I'd recommend checking it out regardless. But essentially, in a nutshell, what string alignment is when you're at full draw, you'll see a blur of the string. And what you need to do, because in this style of shooting, we don't have a rear sight. You know, we have a front one, which is the arrow as our front reference, but you need a back sight to be precise, to align things to be consistent and accurate. So since we don't have that, you can use the string as the blur of the string to control your left to right. As long as you put it in the same place in relation to the arrow every single time, that takes care of that. But when you have your groups shifted like this, what do you do? Because if you shift your string alignment, if you shifted your string alignment to the right, the groups would hit further to the left. And if you shifted your string alignment to the left, the groups would hit further to the right. But that's really hard to control here. It's difficult, and I wouldn't recommend that. The next thing that you could do to control your impact point is to cant your bow like this. That means leaning it left or right. Vertical is obvious, it's vertical. It naturally wants to sit vertical for me, actually, because of the weight system that I'm currently using. But if I wanted the arrow to hit further to the right, I could just cant my bow to the right. But again, I don't have an angle finder. I don't have any way to reference that. It's inconsistent, and the opposite would work. You cant to the left, you hit to the left. Again, also would not recommend that. The next thing that you could possibly do to adjust your impact points with a barebow is to aim off. So I was hitting, essentially the center of my group was that left black circle, the black circle to the left of the center. So in theory, I could aim at the right black circle and make my arrows land in the middle. But that's not always consistent either. You know, you don't always have a great reference to shoot on. For example, this one happens to have a few good examples, but what if I was hitting somewhere in that yellow? So am I supposed to aim somewhere in that yellow over there? Or if I was shooting on a field target, you know, you have a yellow spot in the middle and black rings off of there. It's hard to see the white defining lines as reference points sometimes. So where in that black do you aim off when you've got, you know, that much black or even this much black either side of the yellow to aim at? Hard to do. Also wouldn't recommend that one. Another thing you could do is potentially adjust your center shot. That's the plunger depth in or out that adjusts where the arrow is located on the bow relative to the center line of the bow. I also wouldn't necessarily recommend that because what I know from the Olympic style recurve side of things is that center shot can really make the bow really hypercritical, meaning when you were to make a mistake, if you make a mistake and the arrow moves this far away from the center, well, if the bow is hypercritical, it could move this far away from the center, which would be better, or it could move this far away from the center, which would be way worse. So you don't know what to, you know, expect when it comes to too critical of a setup or a setup that's not forgiving enough. So what I recommend, and what actually started me on this, was talking to some of the world's best barebow shooters that shot field archery. The only time that I used to ever experience barebow archers was on the field archery course, specifically World Archery or feet of field archery. That's, you know, a yellow spot, black target, various different distances, some unknown, extreme uphills and downhills, side hills, things like that. Very, very fun game. My favorite game in archery, in fact. And I would ask them, hey, as you go to shoot your bow, you don't have a sight. How do you adjust your height? String walking, okay? How do you adjust left to right impact? Well, what they do and what you can do and what I do is it's a combination of a few different things. First, you must have your bow relatively tuned properly. That would mean shooting these fletch shafts and shooting this bare shaft, veins not on the arrow. And that arrow should still fly relatively decently, the one without the veins, that is. And if that's happening and it's hitting relatively in the same group here at this distance, what would I do to affect my impact point? Well, what I would do, and what they do, meaning they, some of the world's best barebow shooters out there, just adjust your plunger tension. It's adjustable. It has micro adjustments, and it has a markings on it for a reason. So you can know where it is, make some adjustments, and if it doesn't work, you can always put it back. What I'm going to do, because my group was hitting to the left, maybe 2-3 inches or so, I'm gonna back my plunger tension off. The reason I'm doing that is if the plunger has too much tension on it, it's going to push that arrow to the left. If it has not enough tension on it, it will allow the arrow to go to the right. So if it has too much tension and I back the tension off, I can change the arrow flight and therefore change the impact point and the grouping. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take, we're gonna start with say 7-8 clicks. Maybe we'll just do a full turn. 10 clicks, that's 1 turn on this plunger. Each plunger is different. It's very difficult for me to recommend at all about how much your arrows would move depending on how many clicks you use or not use. There's too many individual factors out there between arrow weight, draw weight, bow weight, plunger tension, plunger build, plunger spring. And the only thing that I can recommend to you is to just try it. Start making adjustments, see what happens, and make note of it because you can always go back. Take out your notebook in your quiver or a piece of paper or something and say, I just took 1 full turn, 10 clicks off of my plunger tension, and we'll see how much it moves. So I'm gonna shoot another group of 6 and see what happens. Again, not changing anything. I'm not gonna change my string alignment. I'm not gonna change my point of aim. I'm not gonna cant my bow. I'm not gonna change my crawl. I'm gonna do all of that the same. The only thing that I change is my plunger tension. That was a decent shot, and it's closer to the middle, so I'm gonna keep going. And I can make adjustments on the fly if I wanted to. If I notice it's not enough, I can add a few more clicks here or there, whether that add or remove them, and continually try to tune it in so I get that group right in the center. That one was a little rushed, still hitting a little bit to the left, so I took a couple more clicks off of my plunger tension. Still hitting ever so slightly to the left, so I took another couple clicks off. So right now I'm up to 14. You gotta pay attention to these things because if you don't like it, I can always put 14 clicks back on and go back to where I was if I wanted to. Okay, so it looks like the group has shifted a fair amount and it's almost dead in the center. The majority of the arrows are actually inside that black circle in the center of the target. So I'm gonna take you down there and we're gonna get a closer up look, and then we're gonna discuss a little bit more as to what you need to pay attention to and what you need to be careful of, because there is a few things that this adjustment can cause as far as problems are concerned, and definitely need to address them. And also a few different strategies that you can implement on your end while you're shooting different styles of archery, different games, and just overall some things to pay attention to for the future. All right, so as you can see, I have basically 4 arrows touching just to the left of center, maybe a ½ an inch off the center of the target. And this far left one is just off the spot to the left, and this low right one, bit of a mistake, and it's still well within the black range. Left to right, it's just a little low. So the center of my group is right about here, maybe a 1/4 of an inch, maybe a 1/2 of an inch, like I said, left of center. And I've done nothing other than adjust plunger tension to shift this group from left of center by about 2 to 3 inches to now almost dead center in the target. And that's not changing any form, no technique, no real anything of my structure of the shot at all. It was something completely outside of what I do on the bow, and it affected the groups exactly how I wanted it to. But now we've got to talk about a few different things that need to be paid attention to as a caveat to this. I mentioned already earlier, as long as your arrows are relatively tuned, this will work. Because if you're complete spine off, as far as the actual arrow stiffness that you need, this isn't going to make a whole lot of difference. You're going to continue to hit very far to the right or very far to the left. You have to have your tune relatively close. But like I said before, you can make some adjustments and see if it affects your grouping. And if it does, then cool. You can shoot in the middle with a bit more comfort, not canting the bow, not changing your string alignment, and not aiming off, just simply by adjusting your plunger tension. The next thing would be, does this affect your tune of your bow? Yeah, it does. The plunger tension directly affects the tune of your bow. More plunger tension means the arrow will act slightly stiffer. Less plunger tension, the arrow will act slightly weaker. Can that affect your grouping? Yes, absolutely. It can make your groups open up or close actually up, depending on what your exact parameters are and where you're at within your tune. So that can change things, of course, as well. But the main important thing is what I just said before I pulled arrows, was try to adjust something that is completely adjustable, that is outside of what I am doing. I am not canting the bow to compensate. I'm not changing my string alignment to compensate, and I'm not aiming off. Those three things are changing what I'm doing as far as the shot is concerned. And I argue that adjusting your form or the way you shoot the bow, like those other three methods compared to the plunger tension, will change the grouping far more so than the potential loss of tune of just changing the plunger tension by one turn. As you can see, the arrow grouping didn't really get any worse, but it moved into the middle, so I can, in theory, shoot higher scores by shooting more arrows in the middle, even if my group isn't as good. It's not gonna really have such a negating effect. Like I said, I think changing your form, changing your technique, changing the stuff that you're doing on the bow, manipulating the bow slightly different, is gonna have more of a negative impact than moving the plunger tension will to the actual performance, the groups, the consistency of the actual arrows impacting the target. Something to make note of as well, and the reason that I asked these barebow shooters this is because they kind of planted the seed in my brain. Again, I said field archery, because as you go from 5 meters, which is a very deep crawl, to 50 meters, a point-on crawl, depending on how you have your bow set up, you're drawing the bow back very different amounts. Specifically the arrow, not necessarily the bow, but the arrow, when you pull back here on, point-on position like this, check the arrow out in relation to the front of my riser. And you'll see that, it's got a little bit sticking out, and my anchor is consistent and my draw length is what I like it to be. Now if I crawl really far down the string, this is going to be exaggerated. My crawl is not this deep, but for the sake of this channel and this video, I just want you to see it. Now I'm going to draw the bow back in a very, very deep crawl. Obviously I would never do this, but look how much further the arrow is sticking out in front of the bow. This is the same anchor and the same draw length, at least as best as I possibly can with that crazy of a deep crawl. So you can see the arrow is drawn back actually different amounts. The reason is because of the way the string conforms to our fingers. It angles forward above our fingers. The further down you crawl, the further up the arrow is away from our hands. Therefore, the further forward it is, less draw length. So I would ask the barebow shooters, after they kind of planted the seed, about good luck trying to maintain a tune on your barebow, because you'd pull it back different amounts every time you shoot a different distance. And I was like, man, what does that do? How does that affect arrow impact and flight and blah, blah, blah? And they said, well, actually, the biggest problem is it affects impacts left or right, because you're essentially changing the tune, meaning the spine requirements of the arrow. As you pull it back further, closer to the nock, the arrow gets weaker. As you pull it down, further down the string, the arrow could act stiffer, but because you also string walk, it smacks the arrow really hard and bends it in crazy ways, which in some ways kind of makes it weaker. And I'm just sitting there scratching my head, probably as you are right now, and as you are all the time shooting barebow, I'm like, I don't, how do you manage? What do you do? Because they shoot really, really good. So I'm confused. How can you shoot so well? Do you aim off? What do you do? Oh, we just adjust plunger tension. We all have adjustable plungers. The vast majority of those guys would shoot the biter plunger because it's very well defined as far as graduations are concerned and where it is marked. And they go, okay, let's see, it's at 30 meters. And they check, okay, that's set for 30 meters. Next shot's 50. Okay, that's 50. Now I got a 5 meter crawl. And I looked at them, I was like, are you serious? That's how you adjust your plunger tension? And I was just putting it back to my 20-yard crawl right there because I know where my plunger needs to be depending on the distance I'm shooting. At least as far as 18 meters, 20 yards is concerned. I've got that down pat. So, you know, I just was baffled by their ability to know their equipment and make these adjustments on the fly for different distances to make that arrow still hit in the middle so they don't have to aim off left or right. Aiming off left or right when you don't have to shouldn't be done. It really shouldn't be done, in my opinion. You should really try to get your bow set up and everything set up so it works with you, so you can put that point in the middle, shoot a great shot, and have that arrow land in the middle instead of canting, leaning your head to adjust your string alignment, aiming off to the center. All those things, like I said, I think are going to make you shoot worse as opposed to just changing the plunger tension to make that group go in the middle. I picked this topic up because I've had some questions about it lately on this channel, as well as, like I said, I've coached a lot of people recently, especially in barebow, and they all have this similar question because they're all about the same skill level. Relatively new, just got into it again after taking a break from archery for several years. They've been shooting barebow for a year, 6 months, 2 years, something like that. And they're looking for help and want to figure out how to adjust those arrow impacts because nobody talks about it. There's no manual out there on how to do barebow. There are some people out there that are sharing some information, and like I said, I'm just trying to share with you the information that I know because I just think there's not enough of it out there. There's not enough of it for free out there. And if I was 12 right now, or if I was just getting back into shooting after, you know, a hiatus, I'd want there to be a lot of free information out there for me to absorb. So that's why I'm doing it, and that's why I'm doing this channel, to try to, you know, just give more information, give more back to the community, and help you guys out. So thanks for watching. And if you haven't yet, hit the subscription button and notification bell. Genuinely helps this channel out. I am uploading on a schedule now every Thursday and Saturday, so you'll get notified when I upload new content. And if you wouldn't mind, check out the links in the description below on many different ways that you can help support this channel. Again, I'm producing all this stuff for free for everybody to absorb because I truly believe there's not enough information out there supporting the archery community, and I'd rather lead by example. So, thank you.